Greetings and welcome to the ninth episode of season one of our live series Ichi-go Ichi-e, a show where we discuss and present insights about growth, self improvement, development, and awareness. The show is brought to you by Team Bertho and Yes Girls Movement Bangladesh Girls Guide. I'm your host as always, Fahmina Shemonti. To our regular viewers, it's always good to have your presence on the show. And to the ones who are catching our show today for the very first time, we hope you will find something from us worth sticking around in our following episodes. So, the topic of today's discussion is very interesting and very important for every one of us, and it is called The Power of Trust and Belonging. And our guest for the show is Sonja Montiel from United States of America. She's the founder of College Confidence and the DH Effect, and also the ambassador of education of AwareNow, which is a global organization that raises awareness for many causes by one story at a time. So without further ado, let's welcome Sonia into our show. Hello, Sonia.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's really nice to meet you. It's so good to have you on our show.
I am so excited to have this amazing talk and a conversation afterwards.
Wow, that's incredible. So before we proceed with the session, would you tell us a bit about yourself? I mean, about what you do and what drives you and all around that?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I hope I keep it concise. So I'm an educator at heart. I've been in college admissions for 21 years, but I'm going to share some personal stories about how I even became an educator. I grew up on the soccer field, so I do play soccer or football. It's what you call in the other parts of the world. And I'm an advocate to changing what our society defines achievement, and that we should no longer be chasing symbols of achievement, but truly being curious and joyful in how we become and how we be. And this is why this is so perfect with Ichi-go Ichi-e. It's how do we stay present and really learn about ourselves and then build the trust and a sense of belonging.
Wow, that is so. Thank you for sharing this part of yourself to us. So now we're gonna jump right to the session. So I'll hand you the reins so you can conduct the session the way you please.
Thank you. So everyone, again, I just want to say thank you so much to Team Bertho for having such a wonderful series, and Fahima for hosting and welcoming me. I also appreciate all of you for spending this moment in time to join me and have this talk or reflective process about what is the power of trust? How does that lead to the power of belonging? And yes, I will be speaking a lot, but I'm going to be using a lot of my personal experiences because as I reflect on my own life experience, I kind of got clear about how I became an educator and an advocate for young people in this world as they kind of live a life where they're defining their own happiness and success. So just really appreciate this moment in time with you. I have to start with when I founded, I'm a co-founder for the DH Effect. It's the Decided Heart Effect. And when I founded the DH Effect, it was with great impatience. I was in turbulence with my work as an educator. Instead of focusing on the young, brilliant minds, that's my heart. I knew that young people had so much optimism, innovation, imagination. Their ideas were wonderful, yet I was working more and more with robotics, robots of achievement. And what I mean by robots of achievement is they would come to me with their 6-page resume. And they were young scientists already. I would wonder, why are you even applying to college? I mean, you have already achieved so much. They would do research. They worked. They were in 10 activities. They were leaders by titles, right? And so, of course, that created curiosity for me. And I would lean in and I would ask these young people. And when I say young people, these are teenagers and young college age students. So I would say 16 to 22 years old. I would lean in and I say, tell me why you did all of these things. What drove you to curiosity? What drove you to commitment to do research or to even write a book at such a young age? What drove you to be all these titles and presidents and service and beautiful, wonderful things to contribute to society? And more often than not, I would get the blank stares. They didn't know. They didn't know what really drove them to achieve. And what the error in terms of our culture, in terms of college bound, or, seek education. It's the most important thing in your life. But what we were telling them, and I say we as adults and a general society, I forgot, I'm a mother of two. So I have a 21-year-old daughter and I have a 13-year-old daughter. But what we tell them is, or what our young people may have interpreted is, there's this equation out there. There's an equation out there of achievement. There's a sequence that I must follow. And if I follow these rules, I will somehow get to the promised land of happiness and success. So, and there's a study, there's a nonprofit organization called Challenge Success. It's based out of Stanford University, the Graduate School of Education. And these high achieving students were actually racing to the bottom. So they were comparing themselves of who was sacrificing the most in the name of achievement. And I promise I'm going to get to the power of trust and belonging very shortly. But in that race to the bottom, they were comparing who was sleeping less, who was eating least, who was spending 5 hours of homework a night. And the more that you were sacrificed, it was this kind of secret culture within the teen world, the more that, oh, wow, you're sacrificing a lot in the name of achievement. So you are somewhat deemed better. And of course, we all know, I'm hoping listening to this, is what a damage to create a culture of young people, a generation where they felt that busyness was the equation to achievement. And so I know that's a long story. Long story short, I said, you know what? We can't be chasing success. How do we help our young people stay in the moment, enjoy the connections, the encounters, the unique experience of the right now? And hence, I said, well, in order to change the hearts and mindset of our young people, we need to change the hearts and mindset of our adults, the adults raising these young people. And that's not just the parents. They are teachers, they are coaches, mentors, volunteers, anyone where children, youth, young people are looking up to the adults who are role modeling what it means to live various ways of happiness, various ways of what success means. And that is a foundation of the DH effect. So I wanted to share that because that is my heart and soul as an educator. And a lot of people, when I say the decided heart effect, they're like, what is that? What does a decided heart mean? And to live with a decided heart is where we have all of these experiences in our lives, right? I mean, it's infinite. I mean, it's all the time. I'm having an experience right now, and you are as well. And many times, because we're so much focused on the future, we might ignore some experiences that are actually a personal growth moment. Perhaps it is a lack of trust within ourselves to stay put in this experience. Maybe the experience is too hard. It's too difficult to stay there. Or maybe we're so jubilant in joy that we ignore the learning moment and we just celebrate that emotion of celebration. The decided heart is where we stay in that experience and we stop and we reflect. Like, what did I learn? How can I elevate from this? I have a choice to elevate from this experience, both good and bad. And when I decide to do that and I reflect upon it, I will take action to better myself. I can elevate. Elevate's an important word for me. And not only that, when I elevate myself, then I can be there for others and make a bigger impact. So that's what the decided heart is. The decided heart is our own personal experience and taking action on that in those moments. The effect is then we can share and expand that to others. So totally passionate. So I would love, again, focus on trust and belonging. And I'm going to share a personal story. My greatest educator in my life was my father. He was a single parent. He was an immigrant from Germany, Berlin. And he had to raise two girls. I have a twin sister. He looked at us. I'm guessing that's what he did. I don't think he took any parenting classes. And this was back in the 80s. He looked at us and said, what do I do with these two girls? Well, I'm going to use soccer. Because Berlin, World Cup, soccer. I mean, that was everything. He used soccer as a sort of platform where we can learn about ourselves, our minds, our bodies, our hearts. And I was a very, very fearful child. I was one of those, and I was born that way. I was just scared about a lot of things, and I didn't want to play soccer. I was afraid of the ball. I was afraid of physicalness. I really was not trusting myself as a young person. And it's funny because my twin sister, she's more of the athletic type, and my father would meet and they'd be like, oh man, I don't know, Sonja's not going to make it in the sport. Because during games, when the ball would come, I would dodge it. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get hit. And when I did get hit, because it is a contact sport, I would be on the ground for a while. I would stay there. And my father, who remains the best educator and the best soccer coach I've ever had, would be very quiet. And after a game, he would take time and ask if he could speak to me about the fall. And he said this to me: you have to decide how long you will stay down there, what it will take for you to get up, and how quickly you're going to recover. And that to me was my first start of self-trust. Do I trust myself? Why am I down there so long? And I know this is just about one fall, but we fall so many times throughout our adult life. I mean, I'm adult life because I'm an adult, but our entire lives, we fall a lot, whether it's the physical bump, falling off our bike. I don't like to use the word failure, but I'll use it for the sake of understanding. I call them discoveries, but when we discover or we fail at a certain role that we decided to take, or a challenge that we thought we could make this program happen, but it didn't work out, we fall a lot. And this moment in time where an adult came to me and asked me, how much do you trust yourself? Because I had to decide how to get up. I had to decide when that was going to happen. And I followed that mantra my entire life. So I'm so grateful to him. So, and it takes time. So for me, it did take a lot of time for me to realize, like, I hear you, Papa, but I'm going to take another 6 months to figure this out. For others, they learn that quickly, and that's okay because we're all in our own time frame. But as long as we're being mentored and nurtured, that sense of belonging becomes hugely important. We can't know to get up on our own. We do need the voice of others to help us up. So for back to the decided heart, we do believe that there are 3 pillars that create ways to living with a decided heart. One is self-accountability, that we are accountable to every choice, of every experience we have. We need to make that choice. We have to decide what we're going to do with that experience. And you just heard my soccer story, and I can tell you other stories about the fall, but that was really a profound thing as a child. I was 9 years old. So knowing that we have to take self-accountability, that has to start first, because once we're aware of all of that, then we can start to build high trust relationships. Then we can connect with others, because I can't expect someone to trust me if I don't trust myself, right? So being trustworthy is to earn the trust of others. It's a give and a take, and I'll go a little deeper in that in a second. Once we build those high trust relationships, then we're creating a sense of belonging. And it's not, a belonging is not passive. It's not just being in a group of people and like, oh, wow, we're all here in Southern California sharing this wonderful weather. This is such a great group of people. Belonging, that's passive. That's not, you belong to a group, but you're not in a sense of belonging where we share the same vision. We believe in similar values, and we're all striving towards the end together. And again, I'll dissect what belonging, some examples of that. But for the 3 pillars, it happens in that order: self-accountability, building high trust relationships, and belonging. Another note on belonging is, yes, we have to figure out, well, who are our people? Where are my people? Who are they? Are they aligned with what my heart believes, with my values, where I'm going in the direction that I want to go in life? That's important, but you're also responsible for creating the belonging. What is my contribution in creating a sense of belonging for others? And long story short, here's this terrified little girl playing soccer. And in my adult life, I became a soccer coach for youth girls for 13 years. And my husband and I, we created, because soccer is more, to me, it's beyond the competition. It's a philosophy of life. I'm hoping some of you will resonate with that with any team sport. And my husband and I, we created a pickup soccer. It's basically show up on a Sunday, all walks of life. It's free. You just come together and you just enjoy time together, loving this sport. We had over 1,000 members for this pickup, and we had to limit it to 32 every Sunday morning, 32 players, all walks of life coming to, and we're all adults, so we're not the best of players as we used to be. But we share this bond, and we know that we have to work on Monday. And it's such a beautiful sense of belonging to come together that way, and sharing stories of how we got to that pitch or that field every Sunday is just beautiful. So belonging is not only your sense of belonging and where your people at, but how are you creating it? And that's really important. That's the effect part in the decided hard effect. So to review, so I already shared my self-accountability a bit, and I want to review more on the high trust and belonging. Let's go back in time. Yes, I focus on childhood a lot. And even though if we are adults and we never got the opportunities to build the trust and the belonging, we still have so much time. But let's think about ourselves as children. We belonged, there is a group of adults that took care of us. We belonged to a group, but it was based on survival, right? It was simple. We needed to be with people who were going to feed us and ensure that we live. But that's not belonging. As we grew older as children, we started to get some feedback that perhaps we are something more than that. We were hearing words of perhaps love and encouragement. Behaviors of our people around us were wanting more or identifying some talents within us. They might have provided us resources to think, like access to school. They may have said, you can contribute to our family. You can work. You can learn a new skill. You can learn a new skill like music, a new language, writing, all these amazing different skill sets. And as we develop a sense of encouragement with one another, and we now identify like these adults believe in something more than just feeding me and making sure I'm safe, there's a bond that happens. And that's a shared identity. We believe in you, Sonja. We believe that there's a life out there where you can contribute. We are all in this together as a family unit, and we're all going to believe that and push through and support you, right? That's now the active belonging. And it's minute unit, which is our family unit. And our family unit can look so different, right? Some will have our grandparents raising us, caregivers. Maybe it is the coaches and the youth mentors who are more of the parental role. But hearing those messages are so important. I wanted to quote someone, Janine Stewart. She's a senior consultant for Neuro Leadership Institute. And she specifically describes belonging in this way. She's so concise, so I'm going to use her words. So, quote, being surrounded by other human beings doesn't guarantee a sense of belonging. Belonging actually has to do with identification as a member of a group and the higher quality interactions which come from that. It's the interactions over time which are supportive of us as full, authentic human beings. All of these are important in the fulfillment and success as the unit or organization as a whole. So it's the authenticity. Can we be vulnerable in that group? MIT had a study, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it shows that humans crave interactions, sense of belonging, in the same region as our brains crave food, as we crave food. Okay, that's how foundational it is. Another study by McDonald and Leary, so research scientists, they found that we experience social exclusion in the same region of our brain where we experience physical pain. So it just goes to show that maybe we don't think about belonging often, but it is the same as being fed, right? As protecting ourselves from pain. Creating that community, being part of that community of belonging is hugely important in the momentum and how we experience our lives. And I already mentioned, I like to focus on the most minute unit because it's very difficult to say, oh my gosh, Sonja, you're right, I'm ready. I'm going to create something really big for society. Well, that's beautiful. And absolutely, please do that. But really, what are you doing right here in your most intimate place of self? How are you creating that self-trust in the next relationship closest to you, the next two relationships closest to you, and then perhaps your family unit, and perhaps it is your church or your daily interactions with the mini groups that you have, because that's where you build up, right? That's where you really establish and practice the high trust relationships that will absolutely get you to a place of impact, social impact. Two questions that I have always asked myself is, what does it mean to trust others? What does it mean for me to trust someone else? What is it? And then the second question is, what does it mean to be trustworthy? Because it's a privilege, right, for someone to trust me. But what am I doing to earn the trust of others? It takes work. So I want to share another story about me, my family's, and I would just love to hear your stories as well. In the high trust relationships, going back to my father, he, and again, he didn't have any parenting books, but he would take us to the local mountains. Lytle Creek, Wrightwood is the name. And he would be very German. He would be like, girls? And we, yes, Papa, you know. He would point to this mountain of boulders. And he's like, I want you to climb those boulders. And I would look way up high, because you guys remember now, I was a fearful child. I would look so high, and like in my mind, I'm like, the boulders, that's high. There's no string, there's no rope. Where's my safety net? But I trusted him. There was such a high level of trust within that family that I knew that he was doing something for a purpose. He believed in me. And the risk that we take together, the risk that we're willing to do with one another, take it, whether it's an adventure trip, self-growth development together. We're here together. There's trust. You've trusted Team Bertho, Fahima, and myself to grow, right? And I honored that trust. And through that, I elevate in my self-accountability and my quality of living. And in the belonging, it was so wonderful how my role models, my adults, so my mother and my father, always reminded us that we were a team. We're in this together. The Yenishin family, that was my maiden name, you know, we believe in integrity and trust. We would hear the messaging. So I knew clearly what our values were within that unit. So the other story I'd like to share is I'll just drop it to the end. My sister and I were 7 years old. My mother and father were at the kitchen table, and they called us like, children or girls, please come here. And as I approached the kitchen, my mother and father were holding hands, and they said, guess what? We have some big news to share. And we're like, oh my gosh, what? It's like, you know, the holidays, we're getting a gift. It's a birthday, right? And they leaned in and they said, you're going to get 2 homes. Mom's going to move out and you get 2 homes, because they were getting a divorce. They didn't say the word divorce. They knew that our sense of belonging meant everything. And we leaned in, and my sister and I, we were thrilled. We were so, oh my gosh, we're getting 2 homes. That's amazing. And so, because they maintained that friendship, they said, our unit is so important. That sense of belonging is so important. And no matter how that family structure changes, we will always have that core. And so when it was move out day, my sister and I were packing boxes and moving my mom's things out to pack the truck. My father was there helping to move. It was uplifting. I remember it being an uplifting experience. And the years beyond that, I never felt the hardship of divorce the way that many do, because the adults decided that trust relationship and the belonging was going to be the most critical to these young girls who would grow up. And it has. Looking back, it absolutely has, that one decision. So let's think about the trust relationships in our lives. Are we trustworthy? What do we do to earn trust from others? Are we struggling with trusting others? What does it take for us to trust others? And if I just want to spend those moments, and maybe it will be many moments for you, where you really anchor to those questions and reflect, I thought I was trustworthy, but perhaps I need work on it. And we're always working on it. What are the relationships where I could work on it? Maybe it's stronger in other ways, in other relationships than others. So there's this great book out there that I'd like to share with you, and perhaps you know it. It's Stephen Covey's Speed of Trust. And I love the way he dissects trust relationships. He says trust changes everything. And with the decided heart effect, we agree. He thinks of trust in multiple ways. I'm not going to dissect the book. You can go share it, and I'll be happy to share a link. But I like to focus on the self-trust and relationship trust. So you know that the self-trust is like, yep, Sonja, we hear you. You've been saying this from the beginning. Self-accountability. It has to start with me. And he breaks it up into 4 components. Integrity with myself. Am I congruent and aligned with the values that I share, that I say? Do I walk the talk? So if I say these things, that I live with integrity, that I live with honesty, that I'm compassionate, am I consistent in that? The second one is intent. The intent is really interesting because when we engage in relationships, are we saying to ourselves, ooh, I want this from this person. Oh, I'm going to have coffee. I'm going to have coffee with this friend that I met because I want to know information or I want her to help me. Well, that intent isn't reciprocal. So that energy that you bring isn't going to build high trust relationships, right? Because it's one direction. I want something from this other person instead of coming in with, I want to show up with energy. I want to share to this new friend that we have a reciprocal exchange of values. And perhaps maybe at the end of the conversation, I might get some information, perhaps not, but building that relationship is the most important. So what do you intend in every interaction you have? What was your intention coming here to this talk? Perhaps you're seeking information, but maybe that's changed a little bit. Maybe it's just going to exhale. I'm connecting with a new speaker. I want to share my story with Sonja. And maybe the work that I have with trust and belonging is something I need to process a little bit more. I'd love Sonja to help, as an example. For self-trust, the third is the capabilities. So this is really interesting because our capabilities of trusting, we think these things like, oh, I have every capability of being trustworthy. Right? What we think perhaps is something that we might fall short on in our capabilities. And we might get that feedback from others. Like, what your capabilities are in a relationship isn't necessarily relevant to coaching soccer, for example. I might be intentful of looking at 5-year-old soccer players, right? Just fumbling with the ball. And if I don't have the capability to coach youth, understanding their mindset, developing their trust as 5-year-olds, right? Then it's work that I have to do. So what is our capabilities? And the fourth under self-trust is the results, the outcomes. Every time we show up, is it consistent? And so I talked about that a little bit. Stephen Covey also goes to the action. So action is so important. We can think all these things, but how are we going to act on it? I'm not going to give you all the 13 behaviors, but he does go over 13 behaviors, actions that we can take consistently, exercising high trust relationships. So perhaps it's another talk in the future where we can dissect that. I'd like to move on to a really important tool, and this is what we call companioning. Now, I want you to imagine, and I don't know if there's parents here, or maybe we remember the first time where we rode a bike, maybe it's skating on our roller skates, and we see a child fall off the bike. Now, and I have to blame moms usually, start sprinting over, right? Oh my gosh, their child has fallen off the bike. They must be hurt. I saw the bang, right? And so what happens is they're sprinting towards a child. There's a sense of urgency on the mother. Sorry, mothers, but this is everyone, okay? But I'm just going to blame the moms just because I am one. And they swoop the child up. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh, are you okay? Oh, it looks like you're hurt, right? What we've done in that is it's not companioning, it's the opposite. We have completely taken away that experience from that child. we have told them exactly how that child should feel, that they cannot take care of themselves, so I will swoop you up and I will comfort you, right? So we've created codependency in that moment. And if we don't recognize it, as parents, it's repeated, then we do create this codependency. Companioning is really walking alongside another's experience, whether it's a child, whether it's your coworker, a peer, a colleague, a friend, that we would never interfere with their life experiences. We wouldn't want to take away their emotions. We don't want to take away their capabilities to solve their problems. So a lot of things is, parents want to come in and fix the problem, like, oh my gosh, I have to help you, and I'll start having these solutions. Well, we haven't given that respect to the other human. Companioning is walking alongside. So let's go back to the bike. The child falls. And you're not necessarily sprinting, but you're walking towards that child, right? There is a concern. I care about you. You kneel down to the child, and now you use accurate thinking, accurate thoughts and words. I saw that fall. You fell off your bike. How are you feeling? And some children, or maybe it was the adult that fell, would, I get to decide on how I feel from that experience. I'm actually okay, right? Or I'm feeling pain in my elbow, or I'm really hurt. I need your help. In that moment, if you, hopefully you're with me, we've given complete respect to this other human, saying to them indirectly, you are capable. You have the skill sets to experience this and to resolve your problem. You can rise up, right? Like my father did when I fell from soccer. You'll determine how you will rise up, but I will be your mentor. I will walk alongside you. To not do that, to swoop up and fix and try to repair and let me fix that for you, or interrupt, oh, you shouldn't be feeling that way. Or even, I feel so sad for you. I'm going to cry, like, oh, I'm so upset, right? Taking that emotion and dispersing it to yourself is actually disrespectful. So there's a strategy that we use, companioning. It's the acronym HEART, HEART, HEART. H is to hold the space, right? It's the approach. I'll walk to you, I'll kneel down, I'm going to create a space. And sometimes we use silence. How are you feeling today? Now, the other person can use that open space and share or not. I mean, parents, if we have any parents raising teens, this is a magic. Like for me, I just wrote an article for AwareNow as the ambassador for education. And I actually explained this whole scenario of how do we build trust with a growing teenager who's like, I don't want to talk right now, right? Or they isolate themselves in the room, or they don't say like, I'm fine. They don't say a lot. But it's for practice. So you hold the space. E is for helping to empty the yuck. There's a lot of words that say empty the cup. Empty the cup. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm actually having a really bad day. I feel like a failure. A friend doesn't like me right now, right? They're processing their emotions. They're emptying the cup. Because imagine if the cup is filled with all of those those hard emotions, and you're just going to come in like, oh, we can fix it. That cup is going to overflow, and the yuck is still there. To get to the E, to the emptying the yuck, it's curiosity. I come to you with curiosity. I come to you like really leaning in, observing your nonverbal cues, matching the energy level, really aligning the energy. And then we can get to the A, which is open-ended the A means action step. And to get to an action step, not us doing the action step for the other, but it's to help the other come to their own action step. And that's where we help practice open-ended reflective questions. Wow, what would it feel like if you didn't interact with that friend tomorrow? What would it look like to you if you were to share your feelings to a teacher who, I don't know what the interaction would be, a teacher who pointed at you and, said that you didn't know the lesson? What would it feel like to tell your significant other that you loved him? So these open-ended questions is truly the key, because we're walking alongside, but we're helping the other refill their cup, and they're resolving. So then we get to the R, like, gosh, you know what? I think I could approach my teacher. I think that I'm okay not doing homework. I can't complete the homework tonight. Sorry, I'm jumping on different kinds of examples. So it's homework night. The child can't, it's too hard. They're in tears. And instead of the parent doing the homework, or there's frustration, what would it feel like if you didn't get your homework done tomorrow, but asked for help the next day? I would feel relieved. You're right. I don't have to get this homework done. I just wanted to learn from it. My teacher's really nice. I know that she would help me during lunchtime. That's an action step, right? So then we review. R is for review the decision. Like, wow, that does sound like a really doable solution. Is it clearer for you now? Has this been helpful? Has this conversation been helpful? And the child might be like, yeah, actually, I feel good. I'm going to do that. I'm going to let go of homework. I don't have to have any more tears. I'm going to sleep good at night. I'm going to ask for help from my teacher. And then you end the companioning cycle by really showing, we call thankful thoughts. It's acknowledging their virtues. I am so inspired by your courage to decide to do that. It shows great loyalty to your learning, your commitment to learning. That's admirable, right? And that closes the cycle. So just companioning is such a great tool, and how we can be there for others. That is the smallest unit to belonging. And I'll just go over the HEART, the acronym HEART. H, hold space. E, empty the yuck. A, the action step. R, review decision. And then the T, thankful thoughts. And by the way, the decided heart effect, we do have training, because there's a lot of steps that happen on heart and companioning for individuals and groups. So let me just go back to trust and belonging. It does take self-accountability. And you must ask ourselves, how am I elevating for my thoughts and actions that align with my values? Then we build our high trust relationships. How am I earning trust from others? How do I decide to show up for others? Am I reliable? Am I dependable? Am I honest? Do I act with integrity? And then that sense of belonging. Am I with the right people? Are the people that I've decided to be surrounded with, are they elevating me? Can I be vulnerable with them? Are we sharing something common that's deeper than let's talk about the weather, right? And do I need to change that belonging? So that's the question, part one. And then the second question of belonging is, and how am I contributing to creating belonging? Hugely important. So so this is how I came to the educator that I am today. I will be an educator lifelong. I do feel a sense of urgency to protect our young people. I am on this soapbox of changing our culture and our words that we use. So I'm not meeting with robots of achievement, but we're living with innovators, compassionate leaders, problem solvers. That is what our world needs, rather than the engineers, the business leaders, and teachers. Let's avoid those labels. It's the action of how we're going to contribute under those roles. So I just want to end with the DH effect. And so belonging, because I really talked about the unit. The benefit of belonging can be seriously huge. I'm going to use a company because there's lots of data out there. But for a company, so a large group of people, if we can have high trust relationships and high belonging, 50%, there's a 50% increase in job performance from employees. There's a 50% drop in turnover. So people are staying, and this is huge right now because we're experiencing in the economy a talent migration. So talented people are leaving. If they don't feel belong, they're leaving. There's 70% reduction of sick days within a company. So this data shows for a 10,000 person company, the result in annual savings is $52 million. So this is not just a touchy-feely subject. This really is about our economy. This really is about our human energy and our human contribution. And I just want to leave this talk with someone who has recently inspired me. She was featured in AwareNow in the last edition of Kind. It's Valerie Carr. She's a civil rights leader and founder of the Revolutionary Love Project. And she advocates that the first thing we must do is see no strangers, that every stranger has a part in our belonging, and we should be hopeful in that power of unity. So how can we expand ourselves, our trust and belonging, where it is a society where we're all believing in the values of not only just hope, but compassion, elevation, a higher level of what happiness and success is. Can't wait to hear your stories. Thank you so much.
My God, Sonia, what an important discussion you just prompted over here. I mean, everything you just said, I kept notes because it was very important. And the last note that you finished with, that it's just not about something, a touchy-feely subject. It's about our economy, it's about our daily lives. And also, I wanted to interject, when the story you said about when you wanted to reach the highest peak and you trusted your dad, that actually reminded me of the story that when we were little, our dad used to me and our dad used to hold hands of me and my sister when we used to cross the roads, and we never thought that the truck is going to hit us or the bus is going to run over us as long as my dad is holding me. I think that's the kind of trust that we grow up on when we were kids, and it's really hard and it's very important to build that trust upon new people uh, in the line we're growing up. So thank you very much for conducting such a valuable session with us. That's incredible. Wow. So now we're going to jump into the question answer session. So the first question is actually from Musrat Mritika, and she asked, nowadays we tend to trust people easily, but sometime when it's time to take responsibility for this, we end up trying our best to avoid that situation. What would you advise to in those situations?
I would actually challenge the word easily trust. Are we easily trusting others? Is it really based on trust, or is it something else? Is it like, I just want to be validated? I want to be verified as a good human, so I'm just going to jump into this relationship or this engagement without fully understanding the responsibility of what that engagement is. One of the biggest work that I had to do is I remain a people pleaser, but it was so powerful to me that I engaged in relationships, and I was like in my mind, like, please trust me, I'm a trustworthy person. I'll do a lot. I'll do anything for you. That's the trust easily, but it isn't truly the trust work. Because when we come in with trust, we're very confident and centered. I know exactly how I'm going to contribute to this relationship. I know what my capabilities are in this relationship or engagement, depending on what the scenario is. And so that's where I know I already have that sense of responsibility to follow through. And being I'm going to just pick on, it may not be people pleasing, but that's a big trend that I see, is they're looking for the verification, like, oh, Sonja, good job, atta girl, you're doing so good, right? And then when things get hard in that relationship, because you're like, oh, yay, I did it. Like, oh, but when things get hard, like, now I ask you to do this thing. And you're like, bye, right? That's too hard. I didn't really engage in that relationship with that kind of trust. So it wasn't trust in the beginning. So that's where I would love to start that conversation. Is it really trust?
I think it actually begins when the point you raised about self accountability. So the point I want to raise here, that if it's about trust, if it's about the contribution we want to make in a relationship or a collaboration, is it about doing all the works by yourself to prove that you're worthy? Because some people, they just jump in and they try to do everything just to prove they're worthy, or is it just doing the particular task you're given to with confidence? That's something that we need to learn first. So is there any point that you want to interject about that?
Oh, I'm so grateful that you raised that, because that's ego. That's ego, right? Like, because we haven't trusted ourselves. you haven't done the work to say, I know what I can contribute, and I trust this group that I'm going to belong to, where we're going to truly collaborate and create something magnificent. So when I go in with my ego and perhaps insecurity, because I have to prove to myself and others that I am capable of doing these things, that is actually a reveal that, oh my gosh, I think I have to work on my self-trust, because my ego now has taken over to continually create this narrative that I'm worthy enough. So I just love that you opened that door, because that is some of the work that has to be done to really scaffold this core notion of self-trust.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, well, the next question is actually by Tazria Nidrita. She asked, how long is it normal to develop trust on someone after getting to know them first? She's actually asking about a time duration. Is there any time duration? I mean, a specific.
It is the most phenomenal. I mean, thank you so much for that question. It's kind of phenomenal how there's. So the easy question is, there isn't a time frame, but I'll just say my life, I can, if there's an alignment of, of the shared values and the shared bonding experience, it can happen fairly quickly. But if you engage in someone and you think, I believe that we share the same values and direction that we're going, but perhaps they're not as ready as you are, right? It slows down the process of developing that trust relationship. So it's a mutual momentum, and it takes patience, because sometimes it takes a while. And sometimes you invest in that time and they just can't meet you in that same spot, because they have their own work to do in self-trust. And it may not happen. But I just have, the reason why I'm just related with the question is because my co-founder, Hillary Bilbrey, we only met 2 years ago. And so Hillary Bilbrey, she does life coaching, company, culture changes and trainings. So we're both entrepreneurs. We went to this class for entrepreneurs. We kind of meet and we solve our weekly, business issues. And I came into the room and I saw Hillary. I knew, my instinct, like, I'm going to meet her. She exudes this energy. How she contributes to our class is something I just know there's an alignment. So by the third class, I asked her out on a date. So that's risky, right? Like, like we sometimes get fearful, like, oh, but what if she said no, and I don't want to be rejected, and it's going to be so embarrassing. Nope, because I did a lot of trust work. So I went out and I said, well, will you go and can we have lunch? And we had lunch, and that was the moment when the DH effect started. And that was only 2 years ago. And if you were to understand our story of how our company has grown in just 2 years, it's pretty dang amazing. And so that's why I think trust building can happen in short periods of time, like Hillary and I, and perhaps others it takes a while because that other person just isn't quite aligned yet with you. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that is very clear. That is actually very similar to, coming out stories or sharing trauma. Sometimes we don't even come out to the people we live with, but we come out to the person that, we met just in a coaching class like 2 years ago. I mean, but people that happen, but 10-year long best friends, we don't share that story with them because we don't find the shared story or the shared bridge that we can actually express ourselves. So that's actually a very interesting point you raise, and congratulations on the progress of you and Hillary on DH effect.
Thank you. Can I just add too, that imagine the walking alongside when I talk about the companioning. We're walking alongside this other person, and we know that there's something attracting us together, and we're exchanging experiences, and that vulnerability of the exchange is hugely important. That really does create that sense of bond and belonging. But perhaps the other person isn't ready because of some of the trauma. It could be trauma or an identity that they are not ready yet to share. And so
they haven't figured it out self.
Right. And so you might have this beautiful walk alongside each other, but then there might be a time where you release and say, as they continue their journey, be grateful for the time that you had for one another, but it is okay that the walk doesn't come to its full outcome, right? And that's where the Ichi-go Ichi-e is so important. Don't worry about if it's going to be, are we going to have a trusting relationship? It's the here and now Today I feel trustworthy and I trust you, and let's just celebrate these moments.
Okay, that's a very beautiful point you just raised. Thank you very much for that. So now we're going to jump into the next question, and it's by Mubashira Ishika. She asked, "What is the difference between trust and belief?"
Ooh, believe. That's an interesting concept. So I'm going to try to dissect what it means to in terms of the concept of believe.
When we translate it into Bangla, the both word actually becomes bishash, both of the words, and that's why it's kind of hard for Bengalis to really comprehend the differences and the lines between it. I guess that's
maybe, and I love that. Thank you. I mean, that's great because I'm learning that. So there's a combination of it. I think that if I can just take a stab at this too, the believe is the self-assurance, and maybe it is a bit of feeling the hope, the good intentions. I come to you with good intentions. I believe you are here with good intentions. I believe that our relationship will have the outcomes that you and I will have, even if we don't even know what that outcome is. That togetherness is going to raise us both up. And in that, perhaps in that merging of the two words, you must have one. You must have both in order to create that trust. However, that's the relationship trust, but it's the self-trust that we work on. If they can come together, then it's I don't forgot the word that you used, but the trust and believe together.
bishash.
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 Love it. Bishash. Thank you.
So you were saying?
No, that's kind of, I'm just so intrigued with the language of combining both, and I understand it, and I do feel they're different. They're both two ingredients that must be needed to make that unity happen. So that's just a reflection moment for me.
So that was this is our last question by Fariha Wahid. There are so many times in our lives we had to start again after achieving certain goal or stages. But in those situations, how can you be courageous and start again from that point?
Yes, thank you so much. And this is where, we use the word in our society, failure or mistakes a lot. And I refuse to use those words. So for example, we've chosen one path, and we anchored ourselves to a path and we're successful in it, and then something happens. We have to change, right? And I call it to, I walk along this path, and I could tell you my professional journey as an educator. I've worked on so many different places, and I reached the dead end. I reach a wall, like, oh, I no longer belong here. And instead of calling it a failure or mistake, I turn. It's time for me to turn. So I'll just turn, because life and our journey of happiness and success it's a beautiful design of twists and turns and loops. So the courage to restart, it does require clarity. Why am I turning? Why is this wall here? Why did it end? This felt really good. Why did it feel good for me? Was it just because it validated who I am? Did it feed my ego? Did I learn something from it for myself? How can I use all of that reflection to make the pivot and go into another direction? And if I need more clarity in what that other direction is, because as an educational consultant, I encounter this a lot. What courage is needed for me to know what that next path is? And it does take another person to help you build that clarity. We didn't talk about courage, but where does that courage come from? It is that sense, like, I trust myself in knowing it's time to turn. Now I just have to study, what are the other options for me? What's my new path? I could dig deeper, but I don't know if we're running out of time. So
Thank you very much. But I wanted to interject a little point. When is the time that you know that you have to push through hard enough to break the wall, or do you have to turn? If you can, give a short summarizing answer to that point.
I'll try. I'll really try. But yeah, you're so correct. Like, who built the wall in the first place, right? Was it a self-sabotaging wall that you created because things got difficult, or you became uncomfortable? And then if you look on the other side of the wall, it's actually very paper thin, right? Or is this a journey where you stopped growing? Like, I've grown and elevated enough from this experience I'm grateful for it. But if I continue to break through that wall, I'm not going to learn more, right? And that's where you can turn. Now, it's right. We can do hard things. And I think it's a reflection of deciding to break down that wall or turn is about having the clarity of what's on the other side. Is it worth it? Is it worth in terms of my personal growth? So is that
Yeah,
is that concise
that
enough?
actually that that actually raises a lot of pondering points, and maybe when I reach some answers, maybe we can reach out to you. Like, you know what, Sonia, I got some points from your answers. So thank you very much. It was a very worthwhile way to spend an hour with you. I think it was the highlight of my week,
Oh
this
my gosh, thank
discussion with
you.
you, because I learned so much, and I'm pretty sure our viewers, they all learned so much, because you raised so many important points, so many less discussed points that we don't discuss about at all, but they're so inclined to our lives and our decisions, and we are utterly grateful to you. Thank you very much for being here.
So grateful to you and your community, and just know that I'm Team Bertho all the way. Whenever you need me, I'm here. And just grateful
That-
for all of you spending time with me today as well.
I know we said that this is like a one conversation, but I'm sure that we're going to have many more conversations with you, because
Absolutely.
at least I can speak for Team Bertho that we're not ready to let you go yet.
Great, because I'm staying. I've just
Yeah.
I've decided that I will stay. I will belong here.
Oh wow, that is such a humbling point for us. Thank you very much. So I think so. Do you have any regards to share about Team Bertho?
Oh,
Do you
me.
have, yeah, but any
Oh,
regards to share about Team Bertho?
I mean, this is one of the things with Team Birth that I just joined the group. With AwareNow magazine, that's how I was introduced to Team Bertho, and already that trust. Remember the trust, like all the content, all the messaging is something that I know is trustworthy. Like I trust this platform. I trust the discussions happening, and so what a great model for the previous question, like how quickly does it take to build trust with organizations? Well, this is a perfect example of me being here.
Wow.
So yeah, just so wonderful, and grateful, and to be continued between you
Just
and
an article, and you trusted us. That is incredible, and that is the perfect example for how trust can build upon, there is no adequate time frame, but it can actually be through shared importance and everything. So our another contributor of this Ichi-go Ichi-e is Your Skills Movement Bangladesh Girls Guide. They wanted to thank you, and they regarded that it was a very meaningful session.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you for being here. As I said earlier, that we're not letting you go yet. Thank you very much for having this discussion. And I liked talking to you so much. It was like we are having a discussion, a meaningful discussion in a living room, and that was very comforting for me. So, and the viewers who have watched this, I hope you find this session to be as enlightening and as important as it was. And so, see you next time in our next episodes. Thank you very much. Goodbye.